Boo. I've started this 6 times and deleted 7. No, only 6. I'm going with it this time. Doesn't matter what happens, you're going to get it all raw, unedited, awful. Okay, we're gonna get started. Lesson 1, stencils. We're gonna have a bit of fun with some stencils. Now, I promised in the last video when I talked about supplies and stuff to talk a little bit more about stencils with you, which is why I was waving this guy in front. I said to you to have a look around your house. I've got a little pile here beside me of stuff that just is, I don't know, I've gathered over the years. That came off a little box of gingerbread cookies, and clearly you can see holes through it. It's just cardboard, works well. I think this is tapestry plastic or something. People who do needlework might understand that better than I do. It's good. Plastic bottle jar opener thingies, or drawer liners maybe. I think they sell them for that too. That's great. That's great. These are the plastic doilies I was talking about. Things of extraordinary beauty and grace. Make tremendous stencils. Fly screen, insect screen. A little bit of that. It's really effective. This is one of my favourites. It was my Nana's lace. Not really enough of it to do too much with, but as you can see, it's a bit painted up these days. Super. More plastic doilies. I mentioned the plastic from around gas bottles. That's the stuff I was talking about. Your kids might have, these are fun, you know, the little stencils that they can write through, get their little letters through. They're good. This is a plastic peg basket. You know, you roll it up and you clip the ends in. That's fantastic. So what I'm showing you that for is to say you can do this successfully without going out and spending a bucket load of money, or even having to go out if you don't want to, because it means getting dressed and putting on shoes and stuff. You can also make your own if you feel so inclined, and I thought that you might like to see, I showed in the very beginning video my hubby and grandbaby on their ponies. So what I did is printed that out on a sheet of paper and laminated it, and then with my trusty craft knife just cut around the outside. Now you need to be careful-ish, but not too careful. It's, you know, you don't have to get every little tiny, particularly if it's a very detailed thing like that. Don't drive yourself crazy. But there you go, and you can do that on just a piece of heavy card. Will work for the purposes that we're going to do. And if you do it carefully, you end up with what we call a mask and a stencil. So the stencil, the mask, you would actually put down and put paint over that, and then when you lift it off you get the negative image. The stencil works the other way. Your colour ends up here and not here. So that's your thing. This is one that I just cut from an old, that is a manila folder, just stacked bricks, really simple shapes, gives you a great result. And if you just think you're really hopeless and you can't accomplish anything as tricky as that, straight lines. That's just a piece of template plastic or something, a ruler and a cutter. Just randomly, there's no measurement, there's just wider ones, skinnier ones, away you go. This one is particularly good for, gives you some lines to write on, to journal on if you want to do journaling on the top of your page. Okay, good stuff. So, and of course then there's the purchased ones that I showed you the other day, which I have a good selection of. So yeah, that's the quick stencil rundown. I realised I just dived into this because I was anxious to just get going. Thanks for being here again. I'm going to actually stop the video for a second and relocate you so that you can watch me put some, no actually I won't, I'm going to talk about gesso first. So I'm going to work in my watercolour paper journal that we talked about the other day, and I've decanted some gesso in just a little jar. I buy it like this in a big tub, so a little bit on the workbench is just a bit easier to manage. I'm going to do that for a couple of reasons. Firstly, so that the paper doesn't absorb so much media as I put it on, and secondly because it helps me to wipe back. I'm actually going to wipe back some layers to show you a bit of a tricky thing that it's fun. You don't need to do this. You'll get a very different result. If you didn't have gesso but maybe had some white acrylic paint, you could put a layer of that down first just to overcome a bit of that, you know, sucking up your media situation. But you can do it without. So just, you know, have an experiment. Do half your page with gesso and half your page without if you want. But I'll quickly show you how I put that on. And I'm just going to stop the video because I now have to relocate to. So here we are in our new location. I'll try really hard not to move this too much so that you can keep seeing what I'm doing. And for gessoing, one of the things that's nice to do but not necessary is to put a bit of tape down the spine here. What that will do is stop any paint or ink leaching through onto other pages. I'm not too precious about my journals because they're places to play, they're places to explore, and if I get a bit of leakage to another page, I kind of feel like it's a bit of a happy accident and it doesn't trouble me too much. But it can be nice, particularly if you end up with something you really love and it leaks back through later and mucks it up. So we'll put a little bit of that in there just to protect that spine. Okay, so gesso. I don't know. I'm trying to work out. Yeah, okay, that'll work. Gesso, just for you. Here we go. You can paint this on with a brush. You can use my favourite technique, which is what I'm going to do. But you will need something to scoop it out with. Unless you've got a jar you can squeeze out, obviously. You want a sort of healthy amount. Don't go too nuts. And just get it on the page. I like this because it's quick. Enjoy anything that's quick. And you don't need to be super precious about it. In fact, if you have little areas that maybe don't get quite as much as some other areas, it just gives you a bit of interesting texture in your work as it evolves. Now you might be able to see there's a bit of colour popping up, a bit of a buff tan sort of colour. I've obviously got some other paint on here which is coming off. I'm not going to worry about it. Oh, look, a little bit of blue. To my way of thinking, that just adds to the appeal. Doesn't really worry me at all. And that can be as much as you do. You can scrape it out thinner if you want. Using the card will help you get it to a pretty thin layer, and it will dry quicker because you don't want to do anything on this until this layer has dried, okay? So, and you can drag it across into the next page if you feel so moved. I'll work a bit into that, I don't even know why. Okay, there we go. So now, you want to let that dry. It'll take, depending on where you are, what the weather's like, all that kind of thing, it might take 10 minutes, it might take half an hour. If you've got a hairdryer or a heat gun, you can buzz that across it and hurry it up a little bit. I'm not going to keep talking while that dries. I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay. So the gesso's dry, and because I am really not good at writing while people are watching or listening, while I was after it dried, I took just an ordinary old pencil, pacer pencil, and wrote myself a little bit of a story on here. Now, this isn't any great heartbreaking story. It's Mother's Day here tomorrow, and our local show, which is probably the equivalent of County Fair for our North American friends, is on, and I'm really heavily tied up in that. And it always means that we have a lovely day and they make a bit of a fuss of us because it's Mother's Day, but it also means that I don't get to do something nice with my own mum on Mother's Day. And it's, you know, it's not an enormous irritation, it's not a great heartbreak, it's just a bit of a meh. So for the purposes of showing you what we're going to do here, I've written a bit about that on here. As you will observe, it's not neat, tidy handwriting. I've scratched it out. It's far from beautiful prose, let me promise you. I don't know if you can even make it out, but it doesn't matter. What the purpose of this is twofold. One thing that writing on your page offers you is it gives you a layer of marks. As these get, the words will become covered up, and you're left with, you know, there'll be just little marks that will show through. It gives you a layer of interest, a layer of pattern, if you like. The other thing that it will do is it allows you to tip something out of your brain and onto the page to be transformed. And I was thinking about this while the paint was drying, and I thought I might just read to you, because I'm way more articulate on when I write than when I speak, clearly, from a book. And you may recognise the author's name right there. You could, maybe. And in it, I've written a little bit about art journaling, and I'm just going to read this to you. Blah, blah, blah. The only purpose it really ever had to serve was to get a feeling or thought out of my head and onto the page in order to be transformed. I should put it here so you can see what I'm reading. Which is exactly what happens every time, no matter what the resulting page looks like. That is the magic of creation. You begin with a head full of thoughts and a heart full of feelings. Even if what you are making has absolutely nothing to do with those thoughts and feelings, the act of creating while holding those things in your mind and heart somehow transforms them. A traumatic experience, a sorrow, an irritation, a loss, a delight, even a great excitement are all filtered through with your own uniqueness, colouring and showing itself in the thing you've made. Even though I give my art journaling groups the same materials and lessons on technique, by the end of the session we have many different pages, beautiful pages, each one of them completely different. We are simply unable to make a thing without something of ourselves showing up in it. It's the reason our handwriting is different from everyone else's. It's the way you can often guess who brought along a particular dish for your potluck dinner. Sadly, we all too often look at the creative offerings of others and wish ours looked more like that. What we often don't know is that others are looking at our offerings and wishing theirs were more like ours. One of the early sessions in our art journaling class looks at introducing handwriting, not only as a form of expression, but also as an illustrative tool. The lament, "But I have awful handwriting," quickly arises. But it's yours. It's a special part of you, like your nose, or your eyes, or your toes, or your soul. We are so very quick to dismiss ourselves as not being good enough for endless different reasons. Really, we should be loving the hell out of the fact that we get to be here making stuff at all. And then we just fast forward to, in a nutshell, creating something can take a negative experience and transform it into something beautiful. Or it can tenderly cradle a positive experience and cement that joy and beauty into a tangible touchstone. So that's what we're working on here, where this is neither, I don't even know, it's not a joy, but it's not trauma, but it's today. And when I look back on this page, it'll be today. So that said, what we're going to do first is stop the video because I'm not ready. Okay, so it's time to start. I've got some acrylic paints ready to go. I'm gonna start with 3. Now I'm kind of thinking, okay, I've written about my mum here. These would be my mother's favourite colours, and orange probably. So it was easy to just pick 3 colours that I know Mum would like. Limit yourself to 2 or 3 colours that you just think are happy together. That's just a nice simple way to start. Make sure you've got your baby wipes handy because we'll be using them, and some stencils ready to roll. Okay. And then this is my trusty palette knife, which I use very often. You can use a chopstick or whatever, or just squirt straight onto the page. You don't want to put too much paint on your page at once, is probably the important thing to be thinking of. So I'm just going to open these up and go ahead, and one was a bit tight. Ooh, look at that. So I'm going to just pop a bit on. Don't think about it too hard. Don't stress about it too much. Just pop a bit on. And clean with your baby wipe between things. I possibly won't say too much here. Now, these are going to mix together. I don't know. Your colour theory comes into this a little bit, but look, you know, they won't mix together too much if you just dip and pop. It'll be okay. All right, a little bit of a random smoosh all over, and look, just start doing this. Okay, leave yourself a little bit of white space, because a little bit of white space, you know, places where you don't have paint, because that's, you know, you need places for your eye to rest. But wipe that off, spread that out a bit, and I'm going to put this on straight away. So this is a purchased stencil. Get your baby wipe and just rub gently around. You don't even have to do the whole thing. Into some of those places that you left white, and up off the edge, and then lift it up and peel it off, and you will have a little pattern. Now you can put it straight back down that way, or you can flip it over. Doesn't really matter. But let's sort of do this. So what we're doing is just moving the paint around. It's going to be mixing together in places, so you're going to get some funny colours. And I'm going to get a bit of brown through this because I've got the purple and the green, which are opposite colours on the colour wheel, so they're going to make a bit of a muddy purpley browny colour, but that's okay. I'm good with that. We're coming back with more in a minute. I'm going to just keep going with that up over here, and maybe a little bit down over here, just to give you, so that, and that's probably enough. That's probably enough. Now be kind to your stencils and give them a little wipe as you go, because if you don't, they will dry. Lots of paint will dry on there, and the next time you go to use it and wet it all up, the paint colour could kind of end up just popping up where you're not expecting it. Sometimes that's a happy accident, and it's a good thing. Other times it isn't, as you can probably imagine. Okay, so we've got that. Layer 1. Easy as. What I'm going to do is put a little bit more of this paint in here. A bit more green. I'm going to spread that around. Now, I'm doing this with my palette knife. You can do this every bit as well with your trusty credit card. Now, don't panic about my security. That number doesn't exist anymore. It's all good. Nobody's going to rip me off. That's really not in existence any longer. So smush a little bit of that around. Maybe give yourself a little, don't know, what I might do. And this is the thing, I've set myself up here with just a limited lot of stuff in front of me, and now I'm deciding I want something different because that's how I roll. So try and lift a bit of that, use your, what is this thing? Baby wipe. If you get this happening and it's getting a bit wet, roll a paper towel and that lifts off any funny stuff. This one is better one way than the other, so kind of be mindful of that as you're doing it. So what we're doing is just coming in and out with a few layers of paint, and you can keep on going and doing this, as much as you like. There is the danger that if you keep going, and it's easy because, oh, this is fun, it is easy to overdo this a little bit, and you can end up with a very dark and heavy page. So just sort of go a little gently. I think we might do this way too. So just run that across. It'll soak up any excess bits that are hanging out there and be very cool. I think I probably want maybe some more of those flowery things, since we're talking about Mama Carmel. She's a bit of a legend, my mum. She's in her 70s now and takes herself out to her studio, her little shed in the backyard, cranks up her flame and hand blows glass beads. She's pretty amazing. So there you go. You can just keep coming into that and coming into it and coming into it. So I'm kind of thinking that's pretty good. Let's now, this is the fun part, folks. I'm going to bring a bit more pink paint. You could bring another colour too if you wanted to, but as I said, just be careful that you don't get them so mixed up and so overworked that you end up with mud. It's easy for that to happen, so you do have to, a light hand and a quick hand is often the best way. So I'm just going to get a bit of this going on over here. Sorry, I'm not good at talking while I paint. I probably should have a little bit of music or something for you so you don't have to listen to the crows outside. That's a sound nobody wants to hear at all. So one more layer of fun stuff. I'm going to use this beastly thing. I truly can't imagine what would possess anyone to... God, I hope none of you really love these things and have them everywhere in your house. I'll have to... Send me... If you love these things and use them, send me a photo so I can see. I can't imagine what useful purpose they would have beyond what I'm doing right now. I'll lift some of that off. So can you see how we're just sort of building up lots of layers of interest and different detail and what have you? I'll come back to that in a minute. And these are getting really wet. I might even try. The important thing here is, my lovelies, that you are having some fun. Smush your paint around, pick it up, put it down, rub it off, go, wow, I love that, gosh, I hate that, let's cover it up. I'm not hating any of this at the minute, I have to tell you. Although I am making a bit of a muddy mess in trying to show you how cool this can be. I am making a little bit of a muddy mess. So let's come in with one of these big ones. And what can be super fun to do with this, so if you've got a stencil with a big hole in it, I'm actually going to use that just like it is, I think. But before I do that, I'm going to lay something like that underneath it. So you're going to get 2 layers of juicy goodness out of this. So watch this spot. Just want to be lifting this out like this. Now, if you haven't gessoed your page and it's drying really quickly, you may find this is harder to do than it appears to be here. Okay, so just know that. At best, you'll just smush it all together. Okay, there we have it. Let's see what we got. Ha! Hardly anything. So that really didn't do too much. Probably a couple of reasons for that. I think my nappy thingy wipes are a little bit wet. And try and get an old one that's not so. And I didn't take much paint out, really. So just, yeah, as I said, just keep playing, keep fiddling. And if it gets to a point where you are hating it and you think, my goodness, this is quite possibly the ugliest thing the world has ever seen, just get some more paint and paint over the whole thing and pretty much start again. You can do that too. You know, just it layers and layers and layers, and the more layers you have, the more interesting it gets. Okay, so don't sort of beat yourself up and panic if you think it's not working the way you want it to. That's still not terribly distinct, and the reason the hearts aren't distinct is because I've got this underneath, so it's a little bit lumpy. But I really like the effect of that. So what I might try and do is blot out some of that, pop that back over, and I might just go around the edges of the hearts, where the edges of the hearts are, so that that edge becomes crisp, and then the rest of it will be way more obvious. In theory. We'll see. Let's hope I'm right. I might not be. Could be horribly wrong here. And you just sort of want to just soften that. Don't have a swipey hard edge there if you can avoid it. Okay, let's see how we went with that. Ah, that's more like it. Now you can see where you've been. Okay, and it's probably time to let that dry off a little bit, I think. Could just press that in there, but it's not really going to do too much. It's all about playing and experimenting. There's no, yeah, I mean, you'll just, you've seen what I've done there, just, oh, I'll see what happens if I pat that in there. No, that didn't do much. Okay, we'll move on to something else. What you can do is, but you can get a little flat brush like this, even if you get a brush, a paint brush, a cheap paint brush, and just cut it off fairly short and straight. You can use it to pounce a bit of paint in through your stencil, like so. And that gives you a lovely soft effect. And in fact, let's take that out here, over there a little bit, just to see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. Just sort of follow your nose and see how you feel. Okay, there you go. See, cool. You can pop that. And if you do something like that, if you put a treatment or a colour or something in one place, I think it's always a really, really good advice idea to put it in 3 or 4 places. Just repeat it, even if it's just little tiny bits. Just very subtle. Some of them can be really, really subtle, but just pop that in a couple of spots. Just helps give your page a bit of cohesion. Okay. I'm going to come down here too. Just go wherever you feel. Do whatever you think. That's probably pretty good. I'm going to actually bring a little bit of this, and you're probably looking at that going, oh my God, the paint's getting mixed up. The paint is getting mixed up. True story. I'm just going to dab a bit of this in here, and I didn't want that much. It's very heavy, that bit. Okay, we might even roll that off. Take a bit of the weight out of that. A bit more up here. A bit more here. Just wherever you think. Okay. We're getting somewhere, maybe. We've lost this little heart down here a bit, so we might attempt to retrieve him this way. He's here somewhere, because I kind of want, the hearts are important for this one. And see how that one's really hard and sharp, and these have sort of, you know, they've softened a little bit with that bit of dabbing through them. So we'll get a bit of this one, and we'll just pop a really light little bit of that in there. Just soften it up a bit. It's actually a bit more green than anything. Okay, I think it's time for me to let that dry, and that's pretty much, you know, that's a background. Probably slightly, somewhat overworked, but a background nonetheless. I'm going to flip this over and just, okay, so that's our background. Probably a little bit overworked because I was trying to show you how cool it could be, and I've probably taken that a bit further than I normally would if I was just playing here by myself without being really self-conscious about making it really awesome, which it probably isn't, but that's okay. I'm going to let this dry now and come back in a little while. What I'm thinking is that I might break these sessions into 2 or 3 separate videos so that they're not really long and lengthy, and you can maybe watch a chunk and perhaps go and do that chunk if you want to do it step by step with me, or you can watch all 3 or however many we end up with and then come back and go through them step by step, whatever works for you. It just might be a bit easier to, yeah, it might be a bit easier to load, a bit easier for you to manage, a bit easier for me to manage. So there you go. But that's, you know, step 1, background done. When I come back, when that's dried up, there's not much more. The rest is pick up your pencil, your pen, your crayons, and just kind of doodle and play and bring a bit more into it. I might think of something else to show you. Maybe I will. But yeah, I'll see you in a minute.